Today, I want to talk about disabilities and how the general public should address the issues. Um, and I'm going to use my health issues as the examples, so I'm not singling anybody out. The best way to go about addressing disabilities is, in my case, I have hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain, and I have short-term memory issues, and I have balance and coordination issues. And I have an autoimmune disorder, and I have to wear in certain situations I have to wear my mask so I don't get sick. That's when I wear my mask. When and where I wear my mask, that's up to me. I don't have to, I shouldn't be made to feel like I'm out of place because I have to wear my mask. I shouldn't be made to feel out of place because somebody points out the fact that my back doesn't move. I shouldn't be made to feel out of place because my feet don't work like they should, etc. Just because we're different doesn't mean that we know that we're different. We don't need somebody to point that out. All we need is for somebody to accept us as we are. There's a lot of people out there that, I was, if you want to call it fortunate, I was fortunate enough to be born with a few of my disabilities, but, and some of them I acquired later on in life. However, there are some of my friends and family that I know that developed their disabilities later in life. They were normal up until a certain point, and they had friends and they had a social life and everything was great. And then boom, they were hit with everything all at once, and their friends and family, some of them, didn't know how to accept the changes. Well, think about this. How do you think that person feels? It's not exactly a cakewalk for that person. And they're having, these are changes that you don't go to bed at night and then wake up the next morning and all of a sudden, oh, I'm better. I accept, I accept what happened to me last night. It doesn't work that way. These are changes that it takes a long time for the person that it's happening to accept them for themselves. And then to have to deal with your attitude on top of that makes it that much worse.
Even temporary illnesses, surgeries,
and
how people
yeah,
isolate themselves away from you.
Even with temporary illnesses and surgeries, and how people isolate themselves away from you. You're not going to catch a heart condition. You're not going to catch my hydrocephalus. You're not going to catch my short-term memory loss. None of what you're not going to catch epilepsy. You're not going to catch my autoimmune diseases. None of that stuff is communicable. None of that stuff is contagious. It's ridiculous. I wear a mask to protect myself. I don't wear a mask to protect you. So when you see me with my mask on, it's not because, oh, he's really sick, I better stay away from him. No, it's because I don't want to become more sick because my immune system's low. I deserve to go out and be in public just as much as anybody else.
People losing friends.
Yeah, and along those lines, we you got a lot. We feel isolated. I don't. I tell people all the time. I don't. I've got a select few friends that I still count as my friends. I don't really know how many friends I actually have. Because I don't see anybody.
They just kind of fell away.
Yeah, they just kind of fall away, and I mean, I might have more friends than what I realize, but as far from my point of view, the number of friends that I have, I could probably count on one hand. And I'm not being disrespectful. I mean, and if some of my friends see this and they think that I am, I'm not. It's just from my point of view, that's the way I see it. Because I don't see the people that I used to see all the time. And and I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. There's other people that have disabilities and illnesses that feel the same way. They feel isolated, and it's not our fault, but it makes it seem that way.
It's even, those not just with a physical disability.
Yeah, but the mental disabilities. We we see a guy quite often around here, and if I said his name, a lot of you would know his name. Um, and he's a good guy.
But a victim of the system.
But he's a victim of the system. He has nobody to. He has his sister, and that's it. And whenever we see him, we'll offer him a drink or something, a snack or something. But we're one of the few that do.
Everybody acts like they're afraid of him.
Yeah, because everybody acts like they're afraid of him. They don't want him in their businesses because of the outbursts that he randomly has, and because of his mental condition, and people just assume things before they know the facts where he's concerned. And we don't do that. We know what it's like to have assumptions made on us, and yeah, we've had family do it. It's frustrating, because it gets to where it hurts your feelings. And I don't know if his mental state is to where he would understand that, what people say about him. But the fact remains that I know what people say about him, and I know what it feels like to have stuff like that said about me. And I know I know how I felt when I found out that stuff like that was said about me. And I don't want him to have to feel like that. So I do whatever I can to make him feel as normal as possible. And that's all they need. It's just a little bit of kindness. A little bit of kindness goes a long way. Yep. And I think that's about it for today. Just think about things before you act. And we'll see you next time.